What's going on, guys? Doomwake here, and welcome back to another video here on the channel. A little bit of a discussion style today. For those of you who missed my top 10 cards for Pioneer for Bloomburrow, we'll drop a link in the description down below. Be sure to go check that out. We spent some time this past Friday building some of those Pioneer decks with a couple of cards that I've mentioned and maybe some cards that I didn't even think about in the first place. And I wanted to showcase that to you because I want to be spending a little bit more time on Pioneer, at least for the first couple of weeks of the new set, because we got a little bit of time before the bird gets the axe in Modern. So Modern's kind of in a weird spot right now. And I figured that Bloomburrow seems like a reasonably high power level set. And I think that there is enough stuff there to make a little bit of a splash in Pioneer. I have a couple of decks that I wanted to showcase to you guys today, and potentially decks that we might be seeing on the channel in the near future. Alrighty, so the first one that I wanted to showcase to you guys today is one that I did mention in the spoiler video, and that is Rottenmouth Viper. This is the 6/6 for 6 that you can basically sack a non-land permanent to make it cost 1 less for each permanent that you sacrifice. And whenever it enters or attacks, you get a counter. And then for each counter on it, each opponent loses 4 unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. So the concept here is to utilize a lot of cards that give you multiple permanents. Blood Fountain, you may have seen in a previous Kappa Cannoneer deck, because that's what I sort of akin this card to. It's obviously not the same thing, but it asks you to play similar cards. So Blood Fountain gives you 2 permanents to sacrifice to the Viper. Gleeful Demolition can give you 3 if you have enough artifact support, which we do have because we have the Blood Fountain, Voltaren Epicure, another card that gives you 2 permanents, and Ornithopter. Ornithopter might seem a little out of place because it in and of itself is only 1 permanent for the Viper, but the fact that it costs 0 mana is massive because it gives you this ritual-esque type thing where if you're 1 mana off of playing Viper, play the Ornithopter, you're no longer 1 mana off playing Viper. Another cool card that I had not thought about myself, but one that was a lovely suggestion by the Twitch chat, which sometimes they have good ideas, and that is Spiteful Hexmage. Even if you're targeting itself, it is still 1 mana for 2 permanents. Ideally, you put it on something like an Ornithopter, and then maybe you can say, sacrifice the Ornithopter and the roll, keep the Spiteful Hexmage, get a little bit of beatdowns going. Bloodscythe Harvester gives you 2 permanents for Viper. Fable of the Mirror Breaker, I don't think I need to talk about this card, gives you quite a bit of permanents. If you play Fable, the next turn you attack with the Goblin Shaman token, that's 3 already. So you have this core of a bunch of stuff that lets you cast Viper cheaply, the Vipers themselves. Now, the problem is you need a little bit of redundancy on Viper because you can't really build a deck around a card if you only have 4 copies. So Torgar, not quite as good as Viper, but gives us a little bit of redundancy on it where you can sacrifice creatures to make it cost less, and then when it ETBs, they lose half of their life. And then last but certainly not least, a little bit of interaction in the form of Thoughtseize. I like the way this deck looks a lot, and again, we haven't played any games yet, but of the decks that I've built so far, I think this one looks the most promising, and this one is probably one that I'm going to spend a good amount of time on. Another card that I mentioned in that spoiler video is Emberheart Challenger. This is the 2/2 Prowess Haste, and then Valiant whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, exile the top card until end of turn you can play that card. A slight different build of mono red than you may have seen in the past, where we still have our prowess creatures, Soulscar Mage, Monastery Swift Spear, Emberheart Challenger, Slickshot Show Off. That's the core of creatures. I think the Challenger lets you go this kind of pump spell plus double strike route. So the pump spells are Titan Strength, which is 1 mana plus 3/+1, Monstrous Rage, 1 mana plus 2/0, create a monster roll, and then also a weird one, Hammerhand, which is an aura, gives a creature +1/+1 and haste, and then when it ETBs, target creature can't block this turn. You can set up some spots where, say you just have a couple of prowess creatures and you don't have any ways to give trample, maybe they have 1 blocker, well, now they have no blockers. And then, again, pairing those pump spells with 2 Temur Battle Rage and 1 Twinferno. I chose to go with the split here. I think Temur Battle Rage might just be a better card because it gives you the double strike and the trample all in 1 card. But Twinferno is nice because you can maybe double up a Titan Strength or double up a Play with Fire, maybe even double up a Monstrous Rage, so it has some other applications. Again, not a ton to discuss here, but I think that now that you have Emberheart Challenger, which is another reason to pay you off for targeting your creatures, I think you can go this pump spell route, and this deck looks pretty good. So here we have what you might think is a standard deck, but I can assure you there are some Pioneer cards in this deck. When I was watching the Bloomburrow Early Access event, which is an event that streamers get to participate in on Arena, mostly playing Standard, I saw a few content creators playing this Rakdos Lizards deck in Standard, specifically with this card Flame Cash Gecko, which is sort of another Burning Tree Emissary if you're familiar with that card, and the deck looked incredibly powerful. And I thought to myself, well, why can't we do this in Pioneer when we get Fatal Push and Thoughtseize for good interaction? Because that's kind of what the standard version is missing. And upon my Scryfall search of looking for lizards, I actually found a couple that kind of work pretty well in the deck. Scorch Spitter is a 1-mana 1/1. Whenever it attacks, deals 1 damage to the player that it's attacking, which really curves nicely with Flame Cash Gecko because you really want a ton of 1-drops that can be able to trigger this. So you could even have starts, for example, that are like turn 1 Scorch Spitter, turn 2 attack with Scorch Spitter, Flame Cash Gecko, play 2 more 1-drops. That's just something that this deck can do. And then another lizard, which actually was not originally printed as a lizard but got errated, is Viashino Pyromancer. 2-mana 2/1, when it ETBs, deals 2 to a player or planeswalker. Another thing that helps enable Flame Cash Gecko, another aggressive lizard. Very good with Gev. So Gev says other creatures you control enter with an additional counter for each opponent who lost life this turn. So more ways to deal damage for Gev, kind of nice. Again, a lot of this stuff is standard legal, just with some good interaction and a couple more powerful 1- and 2-drop lizards. But I don't know, maybe this has a chance. I don't know if it's better than Mono Red, definitely not better than Vampires, but we'll try it at least. Another card that I mentioned on that spoiler video is Ygra, or Ygra. I still don't know how to say it, let me know in the comments. Eater of All. This is the 6/6, makes everything a food. It has a ward cost of sack a food, and then whenever a food is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put 2 counters on it. One thing I didn't quite realize in the first time, I didn't realize it counted their stuff too. So when they sacrifice a creature to pay for the ward cost, or sacrifice a food, you get 2 counters on this thing. But the concept here is really just utilizing food as a mid-range engine. Now, it's a little weird because Cauldron Familiar plus Witch's Oven, maybe you wouldn't necessarily associate with mid-range cards. They're more of like you're comboing with other sacrifice effects. But the thing is, you want to play the maximum number of familiars anyways, because Ygra plus 2 familiars is just an infinite by itself, but you have plenty of other things that pay you off for having food. One specific card I was extremely high on when it came out, but when I tried it, the support wasn't there, and that's Bristlebutt Farmer. If you showed this card to somebody in 2014, they would not believe that this is a real Magic card. So 5/5 trample for 4, it gets 2 tokens when it enters, and when it attacks, you basically draw a card. The stats in this card are ridiculous, and one that I want to try and make work. A couple of other new cards here. Camellia, the Seed Miser, which says whenever you sack a food, you make a squirrel, and then you could pay 2 forage to put a counter, which is either exile 3 from a graveyard or sack a food. Sacrifice a food. You know, you have ways to do that with Witch's Oven, Gilded Goose, Tough Cookie, things like that. Vine Reap Mentor, I'm not sure about this one. I joked on stream and said this was the Blood Tithe Harvester at home. I don't think I necessarily agree with that, but I mean, 2 mana, 3 power, it's relatively aggressive and gives you some value. It can't be that bad. I wanted to try it out. And then another card that was on that video is Feed the Cycle, which is a payoff, but maybe not in the way that you think it would be, where it's not a payoff that's going to win you the game by itself. The payoff you get here is efficiency and the ability to target anything. This basically is just 2 mana Vindicate. Obviously, it doesn't go after lands, but very, very powerful card. And Tough Cookie is not the most aggressive card, but if you have some extra mana lying around, it can get relatively aggressive. So I'm going to spend some time on this deck as well. I think some of the numbers could potentially change. As long as you're starting with 4 Push, 4 Thoughtseize, 4 Familiar, and 3 Ygra, the rest of the deck I think could maybe go in a different direction, but one that I'll be spending some time on for sure. So now we're going to get to one that I didn't necessarily talk about in either of my spoiler videos for Standard or Pioneer, and that is Lumra, Bellow of the Woods. Because to be honest with you, when I saw this card, I immediately thought Commander. But then I watched Croakies play a little bit with this Lumra combo deck with Lumra and Iridescent Vine Lasher in Standard, and it seemed pretty powerful. And I wanted to try it for myself in Pioneer because you get some reasonable upgrades. There's 3 very, very notable upgrades here. So the first one is Arboreal Grazer, which has stood the test of time. It's very good against aggressive decks, helps you hit your land drops, helps you accelerate into 3-drops, and is a very, very good stopgap for the mono red decks. The second upgrade here is Lotus Cobra, which does something very similar to Nissa Resurgent Animist in the sense of when you're putting lands into play, you generate more mana to keep going. And the card that I think maybe is the most important upgrade from the standard deck to Pioneer is Scapeshift, because Scapeshift plus Iridescent Vine Lasher kills people extremely quickly. Okay, let's assume for the sake of argument you have nothing else. All you do is you go turn 3, Offspring Iridescent Vine Lasher, turn 4, Scapeshift. Let's count how much damage that is. So you have 2 Vine Lashers in play when you play your 4th land. That's 2 damage. You cast Scapeshift, you sacrifice 4 lands. You get 4 of the SNC fetch lands. So 4 ETBs, that's 8 more. And then when those die, you get 4 more. That's another 8. That's 18 damage on turn 4 with just 2 cards. You don't need anything else, no ramp. If you had Grazer, you can do the same thing, but on turn 3. And if you have any sort of Nissa or Lotus Cobra, you're generating mana, you probably can get another land drop in there somewhere to just kill them on turn 3 or turn 4. And then Lumra, the whole point here is Lumra is more redundancy on Aftermath Analyst. I thought about playing Splendid Reclamation, and there's definitely a lot of tweaking to be done. I don't know if you take a look at the deck size, that is 63 cards, but I think this one is one that I'm going to spend some time on as well, just because it's so easy to kill people with this deck. I even Goldfish a couple of games. I know it's not necessarily gameplay yet. We'll get to that in a little bit. But if the editor can throw that in and see exactly what this deck is capable of. Busted? Did we break it? I think we broke it. Okay, well, I mean, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4. Was that good? Well, that was fun. Okay. Was that turn 3? That was turn 3, right? Did we break it? Question mark. Definitely not with this hand. Is this hand good? I think so. Back the Scapeshift? No. Back the Pillage. Go here, get black. That's pretty good. Go here on 2. They definitely don't have Fatal Push. Okay, can I kill them? I think they're dead, right? So, green, black, Scapeshift, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Green, green, black. Black. I guess they're not dead, right? They're close to dead. Because I can't currently cast... I can't Vine Lasher before I Lumra. But I guess we can just Lumra... Just Lumra here, right? Then we go... Jesus Christ. Oh, we can keep going, right? Because we can Pillage now. Chad, I think we broke Pioneer. This is turn 2. No, this is turn 3 again. I know. Unfortunately, we're only a turn 3 combo deck. I know. Crazy. Unbelievable. No, I didn't put in the retreat. Oh, I'm just looking through half of my deck. No big deal. We want Pillage, right? Or Pitiless. I have 11 mana. So Carnage... Yeah, because you just Carnage into another Lumra, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sure. And I actually now have enough mana to play this not kicked first, right? Yeah, then we go Analyst. Go here. Sec this. Is that good? I think that's pretty good, right? Is Is that good? So, granted, that's without any interaction, and again, I think this deck needs to trim it down a little bit, maybe change some of the numbers around. But the concept is there for sure. The core is very strong, and it's one that I'm very excited about. But that's pretty much all we got for today. So these are some decks that I plan on making content with over the next couple of weeks. Let me know which one you are most excited for. And if it's none of the above, what are you excited for from Bloomburrow for Pioneer? Because, like I said, we're going to be spending some more time on Pioneer. I think this format has the potential to be shaken up a little bit. With all of that said, hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to comment down below, like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.